Hello everybody, and this is the second video in the Blender Basics playlist. Okay, so in the first video what we did is we learned the navigation, how to rotate around, how to zoom into, and how to pan uh, in the viewport. We also learned how to do basic orthographic views, for example, 1 for front, control 1 for back, 7 for top, 3 for the side, all that stuff. And we learned how to click on an object and basically use that to center the panning. So, for example, Control I will make that the center of our universe temporarily, and now we can rotate around it. Okay, well, all of this is great, but we need to now learn how to actually move and manipulate the objects. Notice that before, when we were rotating around, we were not actually moving the objects. We were just ourselves, as if we were a little bird flying around the object, and the object itself wasn't moving. You can see that it's stuck in between these three axes, just kind of sitting there. I'm moving around, I'm zooming in, but the object hasn't moved. So how do we move the actual object? Well, to illustrate that, first what I'm going to do is get rid of this cube, because the cube looks exactly the same from all orientations, and it's not a great example when we want to, move things. So I'm going to delete it by pressing delete, and I'm going to add a monkey. And you'll see what the monkey is. Now, before I showed you how to add things by going to this add menu, well, I'm going to show you a great shortcut. Shift A brings up the add menu. I'm going to mesh and I'm going to go to monkey. And there's this Blender monkey called Suzanne that appears whenever I add this monkey. I don't know why she's called Suzanne. It's probably somebody's loved one. But here is Suzanne, the low poly monkey. So the reason I chose Suzanne is because she has a front, back, top, sides, and bottom, and it's really obvious which side is which. So it'll be more obvious when I move things around. Okay, so we have Suzanne. This is all fantastic. And now I'm going to show you how to actually move the object. First of all, I click it. Now, here are the basic controls, and then we're going to get into the details. To move something, I press G, and now I'm able to move it. I'm going to do Control Z. To rotate something, I'll keep it clicked. I press R, and now I'm rotating it. And to scale something, which means bigger or smaller, I'm going to press S, and I'm going to do this. There we go. I've scaled it. Now that's all great, except for, as you probably noticed, it seems a little bit uncontrollable. And how do you make things move in specific ways, and how do you rotate things in specific ways? So that's what we now have to talk about. And the first thing we need to understand is the system of axes in Blender. So I'm going to get rid of Suzanne for a second. We notice that there are three lines. The blue line going up and down, the red line going side to side, and the green line going back and forth. If I do a front view, you'll notice that the green line is the depth, basically, forwards and backwards. Well, these are the three axes of our three-dimensional space. The blue line is the Z axis, up and down. The red line is the x-axis, left and right, and the green line is the y-axis, which is forwards and backwards. Essentially, I'll show you with my little head here, if I were to move something on the y-axis, forwards and backwards. If I were to move something on the x-axis, left and right, and if I were to move something on the z-axis, up and down. And of course, combinations of this will move things. If I moved something up and down and side to side, I could do things like this. If I move something forwards and backwards and also left and right, I could do this. So you can do combinations of movements. The movement can be a combination of axes. It can be 1, 2, or 3 axes. So let's bring back Suzanne and we'll start to get into this. Before I said if I wanted to move something, I click it and I press G. And then I just kind of moved it around like that. But you notice that in real life, when I need to move something, it's very intuitive and it's very obvious. I just take, like, for example, this head, and I know since I'm in the real world and I have a much more better sense of real space, I can just take this and move this here. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about what axis I'm moving things on. But in the computer world, you're moving things with a mouse. So you have to specify to the computer where and how you're moving it. And so we need to use these axes to tell the computer specifically what we're doing. So let's say I click Suzanne, and I want Suzanne to move to the left. Well, by just pressing G and moving it, I'm not really sure that I'm not actually doing other stuff as well. Like I pushed her forward by accident. So I want to specify what axis I'm moving on. GX. Now it is locked into the left and right, and I can only move it left and right. And so, for example, I can put it here. Now, it doesn't matter. Right now, you see that Suzanne's on the actual x-axis. That doesn't make any difference. She could be anywhere. I'll put her over here, and if I press GX, she's still only moving left and right. So the object doesn't have to be on that physical axis. It's left and right in general. So GX, left and right. Now let's say I want to go and move her up and down. GZ moves her up and down because Z is the up and down axis. And like I said before, it doesn't matter where this object is. Now it's not on the Z axis, but if I press GZ, it moves up and down relative to, it's parallel with the Z axis. And if I want the object to move forwards or backwards, GY, and it moves forwards or backwards. So let's say the object's like over here. It really doesn't matter where it is, anywhere in space. If I wanted to move up and down, I press GZ. It's hard to see from that angle. Let me do that again, etc., etc. Put it back to where it was. Now, often you wanted to move on two axes. So if I wanted to put this thing, let's say I wanted to put this monkey head over here, but like not forwards or backwards, just up and to the right. Well, if I just tried to do it like that, I'd probably move it forwards or backwards as well. It's kind of hard to control. I kind of moved it a bit back. So what you're actually doing is you're moving it on two axes in this case, up and to the right. What you have to tell the computer is exclude the forwards and backwards part. Do not move it forwards or backwards. In order to do that, I press G, and then I press Shift, and I press the axis I don't want to move it on. Shift Y in this case. I'm telling Blender, don't move it on the Y. Now I can move it, let's say I move it here. You'll notice that from the top, it is exactly centered in terms of the Y. It did not move forwards or backwards. It was locked in, so that way I can move it more precisely. It's very useful to be able to do that, basically exclude one axis. Let's say I'll have to take this thing and move it right over here, but I don't want it to go up and down. How would we do that? I want to move it right and forwards. Pick the axis you don't want to move it on, and then exclude that. So the axis I don't want to move it on is Z. So I go G, Shift Z, meaning no Z, no Z. And now I moved it forwards, but I have not moved it up and down, as you can see from this side angle. So by pressing Shift and the axis, you're excluding that axis. And it's not just in moving, you're going to see we're going to use that a lot in Blender. Shift and the axis excludes the axis from the action. Okay, so that was moving. What about rotating? So rotating, when I think about rotating, I imagine basically a stick going through the object and spinning it on a stick. So it's kind of easy to see. Look at this monkey head. Imagine we were spinning it on this green stick, and the green stick was going through the nose and out the back of the head. You can kind of see that if you rotated this, it would only be able to rotate like that because there's a stick going through it. So the axis of rotation is now this y-axis. So let's look at what would happen. If I just press R, now I'm actually facing down the y-axis. I'm basically facing the stick. I'm looking down the stick. If I press R, I'm rotating it around this imaginary stick. Now to do that, without having to actually go on the axis, which is kind of annoying, you just say, okay, Blender, I want you to rotate it around the y-axis. So if I'm here, I go R, Y. Now it rotates around the y-axis, the y stick. There we go. If I wanted to rotate it, let's say I want the object to go like this. Again, so think about what you want it to do, and then think about what stick would go through it that you have to rotate it around. So it's going like this. Hopefully you can intuitively see that's the red stick, the the x-axis. So if I can rotate it on the x-axis, it's going to spin like this. So let's say I want to spin it upside down, Rx, and I spin it like that. Now let's get into the details of how do I actually control the angle. Let me undo this. You notice that when I did Rx, I kind of turned it and it was sort of like random. I didn't really know how much I was turning it. I was eyeballing it. Now look what happens when I click. I want everyone to look at the lower left-hand corner. You see that whenever you do one of these transformations, a little black box pops up here. And it's pretty easy to not even look at it because you're paying attention to the object. Well, let's look at it. It actually gives me the angle that I rotated it on. So I can actually go and type in exactly how I want it to turn. So let's say I want it to turn 180. I just replace what I just did with 180. And now it is turned exactly 180 degrees. And it even tells me the axis, which I can change if I want to. We won't, but I'll keep it on that. And that allows me to control the angle. So let me redo this and I'll show you what we can do. So let's say I want to rotate 180, Rx, rotate. The box pops up and I can just press 180 and enter. Now it's still editable. I can still move it. But once I unclick it or select somewhere else besides the object, it's going to lock that. It's going to basically accept that. So now I accepted it and it was in a weird angle. There's another thing I can do, which is sometimes easier. Let's say again, I want to rotate this thing 180 degrees along the X, RX, and immediately just type in 180. And now I've turned it 180 and I didn't have to really fix anything. So that's a very, very useful thing. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is I'm going to undo that. And now I'm going to rotate this thing on the Z-axis. So far we've rotated around the Y and the X. Of course, we can rotate around the Z. Try to predict what's going to happen when I rotate it around this blue stick. All right, it will turn this way, like that. So let's click it, rotate Z, and we're turning it like that. Let's say, I'm going to do it again. Let's say I want to rotate it 90 degrees on the Z-axis. RZ 90, now it's looking that way. So you do this stuff a lot because often you want to rotate the models 180 degrees or 90 degrees, or maybe you get a model and it's upside down and you have to flip it. You'll be using this stuff a lot. So that is so far moving, which is grab, G, and rotation, which is R. The last one would be scaling, making something bigger or smaller. So let's say I want to make this larger. I press S and move it like that, and it becomes larger. Well, how much larger? Well, let's look at our little box. It became 2.527 times larger. Now, what if we just wanted it to be twice as large? Well, we can just type in 2 on all these boxes, and now it's twice as large. So we can use these boxes to be more specific. Again, let me do it again. Scale is S. So kind of like the rotation, instead of typing it in after to fix it, I can just immediately type stuff in. Let's say I want to make the head half the size that it is now, everywhere. Scale 0.5. Hey, and now it's half the size. So either by typing it in after or typing it immediately, you can get it to be exactly the scale or the rotation that you want. It's like if you're being more mathy about things. Now, the scaling works the same way as the moving in terms of doing it on axes or two axes, one or two axes. Let's say I want to have this head be stretched out vertically, as if I was taking it and pulling it like that. Well, that would be the Z-axis. If I scale it only on the Z-axis, it will become taller. So scale Z, I just scaled it and pulled it vertically. And I can do scale X, and I can do scale Y, making it deeper. And I can do the same thing as before where I do two axes and exclude one of them. Let's say I want it to become wider and taller, but not thicker. I have to exclude the y-axis. Scale, shift, y. Now it's become taller, it's become wider, but it has not become thicker. So again, shift and the axis excludes that axis. So just to recap, we have grab, which is moving. Well, we have rotate, R, which is rotate, and we have scale, which is S. And we can specify one axis by just writing, for example, scale X, or we can specify two axes by eliminating the other one. So for example, scale shift Z means everything but Z. And that's how it works for basic transformations. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.